Greetings, I am Sean Redman, aka the cheesily named Darth Shawn, and today I thought I'd talk a little bit about the expanded universe, the EU. Uh, Obviously, Star Wars, when it was purchased by Disney and Lucasfilm was all moved over to that they deleted the expanded universe and made a central canon to tell their story from. And so many of the stories that so many people had grown up reading and adapting and making their own no longer counted in the universe. That does not mean they don't count. That doesn't mean that they aren't important in the Star Wars universe going forward. It just means that their stories are basically fan fiction. So that got me thinking, and I thought maybe talk a little bit about potentially the characters that could return into the universe and what I would like to see return into the universe. All this comes from a rumor that was over at MakingStarWars.net. That they got wind that Grand Admiral Thrawn, or some variation of what he is, he may not be a Grand Admiral at this time, will be in the next season of Rebels. Whether it's more of just a cameo, an expanded role, whatever it is, isn't really determined yet, if it's even true. But that brings a lot of discussion towards what that could mean for the universe as a whole. I will put the link to that down in the description below, so go ahead and check it out. Always check out sites like Making Star Wars because they have a lot of great scoops. But this kind of brings a lot of thought to how the expanded universe can come into the current canon that they've created. And Dave Filoni, who has worked on Clone Wars and Rebels, has done a great job of pulling from the expanded universe. He did this in Clone Wars, making Darth Bane canon and different things throughout it. He consistently, they've pulled from Knights of the Old Republic. And then more recently, we've seen the ships in the Princess on Lothal episode are basic from Knights of the Old Republic. We've seen other styles. It looks like a lot of Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic, but we've seen other little things from different canon, what used to be considered the canon, now the Legends, the expanded universe. So we haven't really seen too much of the characters that we're used to having from the expanded universe. The guys like Thrawn or Mara Jade or Sabayoth or Pelion, especially the Timothy Zahn universe, which so many people love and considered basically what happens after the Return of the Jedi for 20 odd years. And so only till recently was it no longer what happened. I'm currently actually rereading through the Timothy Zahn novels as I wait for the next big slew of new canon stuff to come out, and finding a lot of great enjoyment and wondering, I'd love to see how they could incorporate some of these characters, and specifically Thrawn. Rebels seems like just perfect place to put Thrawn. You could have him, basically a lot of his backstory and the setup, and it would make sense, especially if the Rebels are moving more towards the Outer Rim and moving towards more away from the centralized of the Empire, trying to find bases and trying to figure things out, that Thrawn could come in and be a force against them because he is so brilliant. And that could be really interesting if they run into somebody whose mind is just better than them. Similar to how they had Tarkin in season 1, they could do that on the other side of someone who maybe is obviously really powerful, but also being an alien if they continue with that thought process and just pushed to the outskirts by the Emperor. So that's a really interesting idea to bring Thrawn in. Obviously, there are other ways that a Mara Jade type character could come in. I don't know if it's ever going to be Mara Jade or that there's going to be any relationship with Luke Skywalker like there was in the expanded universe, but a character like her could very easily come in, as well as many other expanded universe ideas. Many people have talked about, obviously, the Darth Plagueis from James Lucina's novel, which is a fantastic novel. Even though it's not canon, it's still one of the best Star Wars reads out there. And that could be really interesting, obviously, as there are rumors about Snoke and rumors about other things, but obviously somebody that people cared passionately about and want to see in this canon. And I think that's the biggest thing that goes forward with the expanded universe. So many of us grew up loving and just cared about these characters, and now knowing they're not not a part of the canon universe can upset some people. And so it's really cool if they continue to try to bring in characters from the EU and putting them into these universes and maybe retelling some of their story, but also giving a nod to a lot of the people who spent years finding whatever Star Wars they could to fill the needs that they had. That now that Star Wars is so mainstream, we're gonna still keep you in control. We're gonna still give you these winks, these nudges, and sometimes these characters. There's a lot of rumors around Thrawn. As I said, besides Rebels, obviously the end of Aftermath, there's a character that a lot of people wonder could be a Thrawn type character. He could be a lot of other different people, but if they decide to bring in a Thrawn character and call it Thrawn and actually keep a lot of the look and feel, I think that's a great nod to the EU fans, the people who worked there and said, hey, we still remember what drove you, what you loved, and we're not going to just completely destroy it. When going back and reading a lot of the EU novels now that we know the new canon, it's incredible what a lot of these authors did, especially someone like Timothy Zahn, who doesn't have the resources, say, that a Filoni or a lot of the other people right now doing new canon stuff have, and still great that made these fantastic stories that, really tied into what was the canon at the time. Now, when you read them, you're like, obviously this contradicts a lot of what is in the canon right now, and so they don't work. But it's cool how they can bring characters, and I think, as a number one at the top of my list is still Thrawn. I want to see Thrawn in the new canon so bad, because I would like to see other people. Zahn had such a great handle of Thrawn, bringing in this new villain that is so unlike anything we had seen in the universe at the time. There was nothing quite like him. I mean, maybe the closest thing you have is Tarkin, but even then, it's not quite the same. And so it's a very different character, and he built him and created and made this very villainous and wonderful character. I'd love to see someone else come in and try to see what they could do with that character and how they could create and work him. I'd love to see Darth Plagueis. I'm going to keep saying on that. I'm still hoping that somehow Snoke is Plagueis, but if he isn't, I'd love to see that character coming back into the universe, or even if we go back and tell, James Luceno has his Darth, Plagueis novel. If we did something similar to that in new canon, making something like that canon, explaining a lot of, Palpatine and Plagueis's roots, would be really, really fun, regardless if we bring him into the future or not. I would like to know more about him in the canon. A lot of, characters that we can talk about, definitely, the Old Republic is just teeming with characters that we'd love to see. Revan and Bane, we'd love to see a little more on them and understanding. And I know that there was a lot of plans in the Clone Wars for them to pop up in the later seasons. Filoni had done a lot of work, and they had a lot of art and stuff prepared, and episodes getting planned out that unfortunately were stopped when Clone Wars was ended. So I wonder how much of that may show up in Rebels, and those are characters that could show up. I think even in a lot of the Zahn novels, you can find guys like Talon Card, who would be a really interesting character to bring in, or kind of adapt a character in it, maybe off of him. And I think if they keep doing this, obviously you have to create new characters that have nothing to do with the expanding universe, and I think they've done a great job with that. Characters like Rey Sloane, or Count Vidian, or in Lost Stars, Thane, Kyrell, and Sienna Marie. You've gotten these characters that are new and they mean a lot. And then obviously The Force Awakens, we have tons of great new characters that have, maybe have some little bits of expanded universe in them, but they're new and different characters. But it would be great to see both universes come together in the aspect of a lot of these expanded universes characters being put into the canon through new stories. It's sad to see some of these no longer being canon. Obviously they can't be, but that they may not be as recognized by newer fans as much. And so it's a great way to bridge that gap between old fans and new fans and bring them together in this one big universe. In the end, there's many characters, many stories, different things that could come into the new canon. What would you like to see? Is there any particular character that you're really, really excited for? Any story that you really want to see come into it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I am Shawn Redman, aka the cheesily named Darth Shawn, and may the Force be with you. Always.